Well, it is official. The Dallas Mavericks season is officially over before the playoffs even start, and I'm just here to say, wow. Because very rarely do you have a team who's in contention, a top 5 seed in the West, just free fall and tank themselves into the lottery. Even rarer than that, do you see a team who's a top 5 seed and acquires an offensive superstar free fall from 5 to 11. This Dallas team by far is the most disappointing team of the entire season, compared to last year where they surprised everyone making the West Finals. And there's tons of things I do want to touch on, but the first one is most relevant and most important. And that is the Dallas Mavericks tanking on purpose versus the Bulls, sitting 5 key players and having Luka only play 13 minutes. As a basketball fan and NBA fan, this is malpractice at the highest level. And if I was a Dallas fan, I would burn all my gear and seriously question what this team and organization is all about. As looking in the past, of course, we've seen teams tank for draft spots, call it quits post All-Star break when they're 30 games back, and give up on the season. But I can't remember a team who's 1 game back, needing 2 wins to make the playoffs, just give up and call it quits. I don't know who made this call. Was it Cuban, the GM, the coach, or all 3? But this act of quitting is disgraceful to the game of basketball. And looking at Adam Silver, hypothetically, the planned tournament was supposed to prevent this. But like Dallas showed you guys, that is far from the case. And looking past all that nonsense, at the actual play on the court, here's what we know. This Dallas team, top to bottom, has no defense and no shot creators outside of Kyrie and Luka. And quite possibly, at the rim, they have the worst rim protectors in the entire league. And the funny thing is, at the time of the trade when they got Kyrie, we knew all this was true. And still, I didn't expect this team to collapse like they did. As I was on board with Dallas getting Kyrie and improving their offense drastically. Because up to this point, Dallas was kind of half-stepping, being a decent offensive team and a decent defensive team. So why not go all in on offense and forget about the defense? At the time, in the moment, not the worst strategy going forward with Kyrie and Luka. But one of the big problems, both these guys missed crucial chunks of the season that really cost them later on, as Kyrie, post the trade, missed 5 games and Luka missed 7. And more important than that, Dallas' defensive stats post All-Star break were simply embarrassing. As compared to the entire NBA, they ranked 21st in opponents' points in the paint, 21st in rebounding, 26th in defensive rating, 26th in blocks, and dead last in second chance points allowed. As many problems as Dallas had, by far their biggest one is paint defense and defense at the rim. As someone like JaVale McGee, who is virtually unplayable, was supposed to fix this problem. And looking at Dwight Powell, among starting centers, he quite possibly is the least intimidating when it comes to shot blocking. And looking at Dallas' 2 stars, both Kyrie and Luka on paper, post the trade, were fantastic, and offensively, the duo definitely worked. As versus the Suns, Lakers, and Warriors, this team went head-to-head and battled all of them. And Kyrie and Dallas averaged 27 points, 6 assists, 5 boards on 51, 39, and 95 splits, compared to Luka, who averaged nearly 30 points, 8.1 boards, 7.5 assists on 48, 32, and 78 splits. If you told me Kyrie and Luka would put up those numbers in Dallas together, this team easily should be in the play-in tournament and possibly a top 6 seed. But like we saw, their defense at the rim, in the paint, and those players being hurt cost them big time near the end of the season. And looking at the NBA media, I always do find it funny how certain analysts always try to turn players against each other. And more times than not, they put the blame 100% on one guy, ignoring all outside factors. And don't get me wrong, Luka and Kyrie 100% deserve some blame. But saying it's all Luka's fault or all Kyrie's fault, like Perkins and Stephen A did, is complete, utter nonsense. As just last year, we saw Luka Doncic in the Western Conference Finals after beating a 64-win Suns team. And when it comes to Stephen A. Smith and Perkins, their anti-Luka agenda since last year is pretty apparent. And just to restate, I'm not going to question a guy who's a walking 33-8-8 at age 23 and say I'll never win a championship or I'll be successful as the number one guy. As playoff-wise, we've seen it time and time again, he always shows up in the postseason. And looking at Kyrie, who only played 20 games in Dallas, him being blamed is kind of laughable. And tweets like these, looking at Dallas' record before him compared to after him, is complete bait that people on Twitter absolutely love. And look, Kyrie in Boston, Cleveland, even Brooklyn had a lot of blame to share for those teams losing and not being as good as they should have been. But looking at Dallas, hitting all the failure on him, or even half the failure on him, is really unfair. And once again, tweets like that are a great example of correlation not equaling causation. And the one thing I do fear for Kyrie Irving when his career is over, they're going to look at Boston, Cleveland, Brooklyn, and Dallas with no context and say Kyrie Irving was always the problem. And historically speaking, that's the easy thing to do, ignoring all context and all added information. As once again, looking at Dallas, what killed them was their defense and the rim protection at the rim and in the paint. And I am still 100% confident Kyrie and Luka with competent defense can make a deep run in the postseason and make the playoffs. And with hindsight being 2020, this year's Dallas team was doomed from the absolute start. As last year, their biggest mistake was not re-signing Jalen Brunson to a measly 4-year, $50 million deal that could have saved them all types of tragedy. As with re-signing Brunson, if they still had them, they would have kept Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, as well as their picks, and never traded for Kyrie. I'm not saying Brunson as an individual is better than Kyrie, but what you get with keeping Brunson plus those players definitely outweighs Kyrie as an individual talent. And in a really weird way, history always repeats itself with the Knicks and Mavericks. As after 2011, when Dallas won the championship, heading to 2012, that Dallas team lost their defensive anchor, that being Tyson Chandler, to the Knicks. And what happened to Dallas after losing him? They missed the postseason. Looking at 2023, after losing Brunson, making the West Finals, they once again have missed the playoffs, with the Knicks getting drastically better and themselves making the playoffs. Shout out to Knicks fans for getting an absolute steal in Jalen Brunson, who's a proven playoff performer and all-star caliber guard. But looking back at Dallas, and specifically Luka, when it comes to young superstars, always we make bold predictions and grand sweeping statements, when in reality, the NBA at this point changes on a dime. And Mark Cuban, the owner of the Mavericks, is going to feel this very, very soon, as Luka right now is in his 5th year and only once has made it past the first round. And looking at his teammate help, he had Porzingis, who was underwhelming, Brunson, who they didn't pay, and Kyrie, who only played 20 games in a Dallas Mavericks uniform. Heading into Luka's 6th season, the honeymoon phase has officially ended. And for Dallas, it is win now, win soon, or lose Luka Doncic. As reports already are swirling, Luka past 2024 might not be in a Mavericks uniform, which means 2023, this offseason is the most important offseason in Mavericks history. And Mark Cuban better be ready to spend large, spend quick, and get Luka some good defensive pieces. Because as we saw, him and Kyrie together as an offensive duo 100% works. But defensively, it fell flat and was simply embarrassing. And once again, looking at the NBA media and how fast they've turned on Luka Doncic, even Kyrie Irving, it's pretty astonishing. As even Tim Hardaway Sr., the father of one of Luka's teammates, was blasting him openly on his lack of leadership, which to me hints very strongly behind the scenes this Dallas team was quite possibly a mess. And for Luka individually, looking past leadership, his biggest problem is effort on the defensive end. I'm not saying Luka Doncic has to be Gary Payton from '96. All I'm saying, be Magic Johnson from '87. Play defense, be there, give effort. You don't have to lock down guys like a prime Kobe. Just try. Just give effort on defense and chill with the offense and having the ball in your hands 24/7. Now, that right there is my final point. And like I said before, this year's Mavericks team will be remembered for two reasons. The first one being they cheaped out on Jalen Brunson and let him walk for nothing. And lastly, for giving up on their season at home versus the Bulls, packing it in, benching their star players, and just falling flat and calling it quits. This year's Dallas team was a major disappointment. But going forward, if they resign Kyrie Irving, I still have faith they can be a playoff team and successful for the future. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.